Nobody in my family was really supportive of it at all. They were like, really? A master's degree in hair and makeup? Like, what?
Hi, I'm Mirav, and welcome to How Much Can I Make? I am a curious journalist, fascinated by what people do for a living, what their jobs are really like, and how much they can earn. Join me as we dive into stories behind careers, uncovering insights and details, which I hope you'll find as intriguing as I do. So let's get started. We have another show about theater, and this time with a makeup artist. So many questions I have for her because I'm so curious about it. So let's dive right in. With us today is Loryn. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you for asking me.
Yes.
This is so cool.
What I want to know, first, if you could tell us a little bit what you're working on now. You're working on Broadway, which is very sexy. How did you get into it, and what are you working on now?
Currently, at the moment, I'm full-time on the musical Sunset Boulevard. I am the hair and makeup supervisor, so I department head many artists working under me. And then my primary job is taking care of the actress playing Norma Desmond, which right now is the pop singer Nicole Scherzinger. So I take care of her hair and makeup, as well as the other understudies and alternative performers. It is a very well-oiled machine. There's a lot of specificity involved with it, and I found that this job is truly the pinnacle of my skill sets at this moment, all converging in one place. It's a glorified lady's maid is kind of what I call it, so I tend to her every need that is hair and makeup related.
Is she like a real princess?
I would say so. The way I see her is that she's a Polynesian Princess Barbie. And she's so gorgeous and stunning, and the Norma Desmond in our production is meant to be kind of beautiful and young, because you're like, wow, you're a faded movie star, but you're only 46. But it like is to show you like how, you know, over a certain age women are declassified essentially as being viable. And there's a lot of interesting aging and body horror in the show. So we, as a hair and makeup person doing this, it's making her beautiful, but by the end of the performance, she has become completely undone. And her makeup has to degrade throughout the second act, in which she does not come off the stage.
That sounds to me really complicated.
It is. You have to set it up for success. And so there's a lot of tests involved. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of failure that you have to allow yourself to be okay with, and then try again the next time. And to create this design, the designer, her name is Cheryl Thomas, and she's a great mentor of mine. And there was so much work that went into creating this to make it effective.
So how long did you have to prepare before the show opened?
We had rehearsals. They were starting in tech. I came in late into the process. I was hired 3 days before the first preview. So it was 3 days before the first paying audience. I was hired very late into the game because it was very difficult to find somebody who had the skill set to do this job, because it isn't just, you know, doing makeup. It's doing hair and makeup that is also being filmed on an HD screen. And so there's every single night. So we integrate film into the live performance, and it is an homage to black and white cinema and film noir. But it also it shows you the close-ups, so you can get these really beautiful, nuanced facial expressions with our entire cast, and it's really incredible. But it also means that the quality of the hair and makeup has to be at such a standard that you can't clock it, because I can't touch it up and like try it again. It's do it perfect. It's on a Jumbotron. And then if it needs touch up, you touch them up then when they come off right quick. It is so tricky.
You have to show her progress. You have to show her as an older woman also.
She is a beautiful woman who does not look 46, but it's more in the style of the application of the makeup. We do a beauty makeup on her that looks beautiful, but then the thing that makes it almost like special effects is we do a really creamy, oily under eye that's very smoky. And it evokes this idea that she's a sleepwalker and she hasn't been sleeping and she's kind of kooky and, you know, not fully with us. And then it also harkens back to her as a silent film star in the 20s of using like Vaseline and soot to make eye makeup. So there's little things like that that are being told through the makeup, that she heard her acting take it, and you can see, she's an aging pop star.
I want to back up for a second. How did you start in makeup?
My earliest forays into makeup were as a very small child. My mom was very active in our church growing up. She designed the sets and costumes for our nativity and passion plays.
Okay.
I remember being 4 years old in the Easter pageant and wondering how our pastor playing Jesus was a pastor 10 minutes ago, but now he's Jesus covered in blood. And then he's back to being a pastor, and I couldn't figure it out. And they're like, Loryn, it's ketchup. And I was like, oh my goodness. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I was so fascinated. And I was like, okay. So I've always loved playing dress up and trying to turn myself into other things, and that was always very part of who I am. And I always enjoyed being on stage, but not as much as I enjoyed the backstage part of it. I never got cast as an ingenue because I didn't have the right body for it, so I would just design people's hair and makeup for them and do that and be like so much more satisfied. My undergrad is in art history and anthropology.
Oh wow.
But the entire time that I was in school, I was working at MAC at the mall doing makeup for, proms and, ladies on the go and all of that. And so I worked in retail as a means to an end, it was like I did makeup for fun all through that time, and no one said that it could be a real job besides retail.
When did you realize it could be a real job?
It was in 2011. I had done Opera Tampa as a singer. And then in St. Pete Opera, they were doing a performance of Madame Butterfly. And my friend was in the art chorus, and he was like, hey, we need help in hair and makeup. I know you do makeup. Can you come? And I was like, I don't know anything about wigs, but if you tell me what to do, I'll do it. And the girl that was in charge of the wig department, her name was Jessica Mills. She was amazing. And she was like, you're good at this. You could do this for a living. And I was just about to graduate undergrad, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was considering becoming a physician's assistant. And then she was like, you could do this for a living and make wigs and do theatrical makeup for film and TV and opera. And I was like, oh my goodness. So she's like, there's a school called University of North Carolina School of the Arts in North Carolina, Winston-Salem. And they had a master's program in wig and makeup design. And I essentially applied on a whim because nobody in my family was really supportive of it at all. They were like, really? A master's degree in hair and makeup? What? And my mother, thankfully, was supportive as best as she could be. And when I got in, it was life-changing. I realized that all the things that I had done and been the way I growing up, being a super nerd, and loving the things I loved, was actually building a skill set for the career that I have now.
Did history of art help
all of
you?
It. Oh, significantly.
Really?
I have such a strong brain for time periods and the specificity of certain time periods, and because I love learning about the history and science of cosmetics and hairstyling and body modification, it makes it very easy for me to get a time period, and I can tell you exactly what was going on in that time period culturally to suggest, a silhouette of hairstyle or a product that they're using that was all the rage in the period to make them look so white.
Do you work closely with the director or the designer of the show?
It depends on the job. So as a designer, which is what I'm hoping to do. I wish to be a Broadway wig and makeup designer. I work on Broadway as a supervisor and as an artist, but I really hope one day to design for the Broadway show. I work as a wig and makeup designer for the Manhattan School of Music down the street.
Yes.
I'm their resident, and I've been with them since 2019. So at those shows, doing both musicals and operas, I get to live my best life. We don't have a huge budget, but we have good budget. And I have a wig stock that I rent out and that I utilize. And we get to do incredible, fantastic productions.
So in most cases, they leave the look to you? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a lot.
It's a collaboration with the costume designer as well. I would say that me and the costume designer are best friends through the production. And it is our job to get the director's vision, but then bring it down into the most specific parts of that character.
Where did you learn all of this? School?
All at that school. So this one is a public university. So the tuition is really affordable. And it's the only one that offers an undergrad and a master's degree. So you can get a 4-year degree and then learn how to do this and get a BFA, MFA. There are many schools and trade schools in the United States that offer like 18-month programs where you can learn the same exact skills, but you don't get a degree. You get a certificate. And so those schools are highly specialized, and you end up really just focusing on the trade and the craft of it all, but you're not getting like a bachelor's degree. You're not learning Spanish or French and film theory and things in addition to
and
the
you
skills.
have it all.
Yeah. So
when you approached Broadway, did they ask to see your degree?
No, they don't care at all about that. They care that you can do the skill well, and they care that you have good connections. That's really the biggest thing that came from my school, was that School of the Arts has a robust network of individuals that are highly successful throughout all the performing visual arts.
Oh, wow.
So when I was in school, we did operas at school as well, and I became friends with those singers, those costume designers, those set designers, and now that we're all out in the real world working, we now are very connected to one another, and the school prides itself on having reputation that 95% of their students are offered jobs before they even graduate.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
I was one of those students, and I was headhunted essentially at my school by a company. And they came and they were like, hey, you do prosthetics? You want to travel the world? Do you want to do Shrek the Musical all over the Middle East and Southeast Asia? And I was like, yes, I do.
And you did?
And I did. In fact, I've been gainfully employed since then without really any major lapse, even during the pandemic. Most people specialize in either makeup, hair and wigs, or prosthetics. I was encouraged by my professor to be good at all of them. And that has been my MO. And so it has been extremely beneficial to me in my career, because I get jobs in all of these sectors.
How many people a day in the show now in Sunset Boulevard, your department has to make up every single day?
So I, as the supervisor, take care of our leading lady, and I do her hair and makeup for every single performance. I also have a colleague, and his job is to do all of our haircuts for everybody that's in our ensemble. So he's in charge of cutting hair, on a regular basis.
And he reports to you?
Mm-hmm. Like 25 people that he cuts their hair. His job also is to braid our ingenue's hair at the top of every performance. For the most part, what we do to make it as efficient as possible is we show and teach our other actors how to comply with the standards of the design. So they do their own hair and makeup, but we do all of the things like provide all the products and then provide their haircuts for them and any kind of guidance they need to
and
get.
Supervision. More
and supervision.
Right.
Me as an artist doing hands-on on the leading lady is actually quite rare for Broadway, to have someone that does both hair and makeup on somebody and takes care of them from the moment they walk in the door until they leave. It was difficult getting this job because they needed to find someone who had the ability to do these very specific skills, but also could work with a superstar and the temperaments that go with that. And
right,
the ebb and flow and the chaos of dealing with things outside of the theater that your star has to deal with too. So it's, trying to take care of them and be their brain while they're in the building so that they can perform flawlessly.
When they hired you for this show, they hired you immediately as a department head?
Yes. Yeah.
You gotta get big bucks for that kind of work.
I think I get paid well. I'm extremely fortunate on this show that when I was negotiating with management for the position, that I feel very comfortable.
You were
with
able
it.
to negotiate.
Yes.
It's not, the union doesn't dictate what.
So there is a base rate salary that the union does negotiate. So a base rate for a supervisor of hair and makeup is $2,100 a week.
That's nice.
It's 8 shows a week at $2,100. And then if you go into overtime, you get a certain amount per hour overtime.
Right.
So some shows require what we call a work call, which is having to wash the wigs and reset them, restyle them, do maintenance on things. And most shows get at least 1 to 2 work calls a week. So those work calls are all in overtime. So a supervisor can take home after taxes a pretty decent amount of money.
Yeah, sounds like it.
When it comes to highly specialized skills and working with celebrities, on the Broadway League contract, which is what this job is, you can negotiate above scale.
Oh, nice.
So on this show, I'm negotiated above scale.
Let's say somebody just started out. What would they do?
So in my world, especially in live theatrical, we hire swings. So that's how
Swings?
you get your foot in the door.
Okay.
So that's being a substitute hairdresser or a
Okay.
substitute costumer or something like that. So if someone gets sick, you come in, you learn their job, and they can call you at a moment's notice to save the day. And that's the best way to get your toe in to see if you even like the environment, but also to look at the dynamic of how a live running show operates. But the good thing is, as a swing, you still get paid the same rate as the person that you're replacing full time.
Wow.
You're just not there for the whole week. You know, you're there for a show or two, you know, here
Right.
and there, whatever. But say you learn different shows. You go and work at a different show across the street or down over there. You can collect multiple shows and make a full-time living as a swing. And that's what I was doing for a long time, is working on multiple shows at one time.
Would you be able to make more money if you worked in a different field in makeup? For example, weddings or something? Would that be more money?
Film and TV is probably the most lucrative when it comes to the money of it all. But the hours are really, really, really hard.
Yes.
But then to people who work in film and TV, they think that our hours on Broadway suck. So it's really all relative. It's what works for you. And so it's like film and TV makes more money because they're on set for 12 hours. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of sitting around and doing nothing. I'm also finding that to a certain extent, once you get to a certain level, there's a base number that is what you know you are worth. Because my job and everything has required to do so much negotiating. I don't have someone doing that for me. And so it's having to always know what your skill set is worth in the economy of the skills.
What was your initial investment in the business?
It was a lot. When I worked at MAC Cosmetics, I was very fortunate that they gave us a really good discount. So I was able to buy a lot of MAC products at 60% off. And
Whoa.
that helped tremendously.
Of course.
When I started at grad school, they gave us a kit list. And everything on that list was about $10,000 altogether, with every single item we
What?
could possibly need. And that was every color of makeup, every product for hairstyling, because it was both hair and makeup, wigs, prosthetics, it was everything. And they told us, we don't expect you to buy everything in this kit, especially right away, all at once. You're going to buy things as you need them, but this is the list of items that we suggest. And as people specialize, you know, they're going to gravitate more towards one or the other. I would say each year I probably put in a couple $1,000s into my kit to refurbish it yearly.
That's not too bad.
It's
I
really
think.
not.
No.
It's not. And if you have really high quality brushes, I still have my brushes that I bought 15 years ago because they're really beautifully well made and I maintain them. You know, so it's like you're only buying more disposable products. My wig stock is also part of that. You know, once you start building wigs, you then have wigs you can rent out. And then they can make money for you. The larger your stock and what you specialize in, you can design an entire opera and then they pay you to borrow your wigs. So that's another venture I
Who
have.
knew that you can make money on the side like that?
Yeah. So I'm a hustler and I've always done multiple jobs all at once. So freelancing for me hasn't been scary. It's been how I've always done it. When I'm not working on Broadway, I'm building wigs for other designers. A year and a half ago, when I got divorced, I didn't know. I went one day from having a husband with a job that was supportive to not knowing where my money was coming from. And a colleague called me and was like, hey, can you come to this hotel in Chelsea and build wigs for me this week? And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. And I showed up and I was like, who are we building for? She's like, Madonna.
Oh my God.
And then we built all of Madonna's wigs for her tour. It was amazing. I tell people that Madonna paid my rent that year. And it's the truth. Like, if I didn't have that job, I could not have stayed in my apartment.
So on every tour that they have like a...
They have a team and hair and makeup and sometimes...
wigs?
And sometimes they want wigs. And she wanted wigs. So she hired my colleague, Mariah Dearman, who is an incredible wig maker. She is the top of the game for the everyday wig person. Like, she specializes in hair loss and especially in ethically sourced hair. So she knows where her hair comes from, who it came from, and they were paid a living wage for their hair. So she is a very top of the wig making industry when it comes to bespoke perfection. And that's who Madonna hired to be her wig designer. And that's who I build for when I'm not working for myself. So
did you have to go on tour with them or just...
So I did not go out on the road. I was their in New York City wig specialist. So they would come through here for rehearsals, and then they would come through for different performances, and they would bring me into the stadium, and I would build and repair and redo all kinds of stuff from the road, you know, because things get ripped. And then I have to sew it back together and put more hair in it, and, you know. Did
it pay better than Broadway?
It pays really well, but it was also at a 1099. So right. Madonna was all 1099, and also their pay scale was really shitty in the fact that I would invoice them, and then I wouldn't get a check for 3 months.
Ah.
And that's the hardest thing. And so I had to tell my landlord that I have this check coming, and it's several months' rent at once, but it won't be here for a couple months. And so I had to arrange with him a deal in order to get by, to be like, oh, it's coming.
And he agreed?
Yes.
Wow, you should have worked for Taylor Swift. She pays everybody, right?
She does. And she is the kind of worker that cares very much about the quality of life of her crew and everybody's happiness, which is kind of a new wave in the world of pop ladies. It's never been something that I've seen before. I would hope that many pop stars would follow in her suit as well.
Yeah, I love her. I don't know her music, but I love, love, love her.
As a personality, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Describe to me, what is your day like in rehearsal versus in performance?
When we were in tech rehearsals and previews, in the earliest part of this, it was the longest days. So long. We get to the theater around 11:30, and we don't leave until 11:30 p.m. midnight.
Wow.
It's a very, very long day because we're rehearsing over and over and over again, as well as running through the show in the evenings. You rehearse all day long, you get an hour break, and then you run a show, and then you have notes. But rehearsals and tech, it is so stressful on every single person in that building, and every one of them will question their life and their choices at least 3 times, maybe daily. And it takes time to get it right, especially to the standard that we provide. So that process sucks. Everyone who's in the industry knows that tech is the worst. But once the show opens and the show is established, and we call it Frozen, then we get into a rhythm of a general schedule where we have pretty much the same schedule every week for the most part, except for holidays and things like that. And then you get into a rhythm and you streamline it, and everything gets quicker and more perfect. And it's so neat to see how it all comes together in that way. And then once it's running, you can hire someone to learn what you do because you've perfected it, and then they can cover for you so you can take a day off.
Some shows can run for 2-3 years.
Some shows can run for 35 years, like Phantom of the Opera did.
I know. Do you get bored with the same job?
So I personally think that I'm of that camp, or I was up until recently. So I worked at Phantom of the Opera as a substitute hairdresser, what we call a swing. And
it was a good show. I liked it.
It was a great show. It was a great job. And I would sit there and be like, oh my God, I'm so bored. After like 3 days of being there, I'm like, I love this job. I love getting paid, but I am bored. And I was like, man, I could never do a long running show. But the difference with the long running show is that you have a stable income. You have a very stable job that provides wonderful benefits and camaraderie and support and stability. At the time, I didn't necessarily need that because I had a husband that had a jobby job. So I could be a freelancer and do my job and whatever. But when I got divorced, it was very important to me to be self-sustaining. That's why I'm now more interested in something a little bit more long-running and permanent. And the boredom of it is not terrible because you always have to deal with live theater. There's always something happening in your show that is going to throw a monkey wrench into it to switch it up, you know, just to make you quick on your toes. Like, oh, your lead soprano just went down. Okay, we have to switch out and put the understudy on. And nobody's the wiser until she goes on stage and they're like, wait, that's not the girl that was just singing.
How did you break into the music, the really successful Madonna, B-52?
Yeah, it was through Mac. I really have to give it back to working at Mac. I was with Mac Cosmetics for 10 years, and I came to New York via the Metropolitan Opera. That was how I came here from Florida. I'm a big opera nerd, and it was everything I wanted in every way as far as the artistry and the working with so many singers and musicians doing the most beautiful work in the whole wide world. And that's how I got to New York. And I had a friend who worked at MAC as well, and she was like, oh, hey, they contacted me seeing if I want to do wigs and makeup for the B-52s, but I don't do wigs. Do you want this? And I was like, yeah, I'll call them back. And I met the manager, and on a day off from the Met, I went to Long Island and met Kate. And I remember working with her, she was like, wow, you know how to make my eyes look really big. And like, we're like, because I'm just painting you like an opera singer. I'm just doing a big theater makeup on you. And drawing the eye, in certain ways to trick it. It's doing Photoshop on the face. So I'm working with my opera divas. I'm working with Kate, my punk rock diva. And so it was a skill that transferred just right into taking care of Kate. And taking care of Kate for so long as like her lady's maid, quote unquote. So I do her hair, I do her makeup, I get her dressed, I prepare her snacks, I make sure that she has what she needs when she needs it. I do all of those things for a person, and I really got to sink my teeth into that part of my job at the Met, because you're dealing with stars and they need your support. And I found that being able to help a singer at that level become who they're supposed to be and do their job is the most incredibly satisfying thing. After the Met, I started working on Broadway with Paul Huntley, who is the most decorated wig designer on Broadway. He recently passed away, but he was my wig mentor. He taught me so much about the Broadway business and about that universe of things and dealing with theater divas. And I then started working on Broadway full time.
Do you have to watch the show from beginning to end every night?
No, I actually have never seen my show that I'm currently on. I've never watched it, and it's full from the house, ever. We have monitors backstage, thankfully, and we have monitors that we can see what's going on. Out of the 15 shows I've worked on Broadway, I've probably only seen 3 or 4 of them from the house.
What's the most challenging part working on Broadway?
The stairs.
You're the second person. The actress told me the same.
Yes, she did. Of course she did, because the stairs are the hardest part.
Oh my God, I thought that was kind of a joke.
No, it's the truth. I tell everybody that I would do this for free, but they pay me to run the stairs.
Yeah. I did not expect you to say the same thing she said.
Yeah, so I'm in the St. James Theater right now, and we don't have access to an elevator. And with our basement, which is where my office is, and our leading man's dressing room, it is 8 floors. And each of those floors is 2 sets of stairs. And so everybody in this company has a really great butt, and you just got to prepare yourself mentally to climb when you have to go all the way up there. It is physically exhausting and the hardest part of the job. And the fact that our theaters are old and not many of them have been remodeled. So, they're just not comfy places in general. They're kind of busted.
Wow, I am so surprised by your answer.
Most people are.
Yeah.
I call Broadway a full contact sport, because imagine you have to climb the stairs with your body. Now do it with a beaded gown that weighs 60 pounds and with a laundry basket filled with shoes that you have to take all up at once. They put their bodies through the worst.
Do you also do any kind of special effects makeup? Somebody shot in the face, they need prosthetic?
That is honestly my biggest goal would be to work in that world, which is it's called adaplastology. And it would be, to me, the next level of training, where you work with people who are injured or have deformity or, arm limb differences and things like that. And you create a thing that makes their life better, a prosthesis that they can incorporate into their everyday life to feel more whole. And that goes not only with, for instance, ocular work and doing eyes and facial pieces, but working with limbs and coloring them and texturizing them and putting the veining in.
Do you have any memorable story about people asking you to do unexpected thing?
Oh, yeah.
Something you can share with us?
Well, it depends. What kind of story are we talking? Because unfortunately, in my world, because we're so intimately attached to our talent, some people can take advantage of us. And it can be scary, and you can get sexually harassed very, very, very easily in my world. One of my very first opera jobs, and I won't say the tenor's name, but he absolutely sexually harassed me on a daily basis.
Had to be Pavarotti. I heard a lot of stories about him.
It wasn't Pavarotti because it was my first show and he was dead by then.
Okay.
But the guy that I was dealing with was at St. Pete Opera, the tiniest little local opera company in Florida, and he was playing Samson, and he was a white guy, and I was like, can you please go get a spray tan? And he wouldn't go get one. He insisted that I body paint him every show.
Wow.
Because he didn't want to go get a spray tan.
Right.
And so that meant that I had to be on my knees in front of him painting his legs.
Ah, disgusting.
Exactly. And he was such a sweaty, sebaceous man. And he was just schwitzing everywhere all the time. And he would keep his lozenges in the waistband of his shorts and then ask me to fish one of the little candies out and unwrap it and hand it to him while I'm down there.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you couldn't complain to anybody,
no,
of
and I
course.
didn't know what to do. I was like, make it stop. Okay, I'm just going to paint your legs.
Oh my God.
You know? And I'm put in situations like that on a regular basis, not maybe to that degree, but different flavors of it for sure.
And were there women that were too much of a prima donna for your taste?
I've had a couple, but what's real funny to me is that leading ladies are very rarely as big of a diva as the third chorus girl on the left wearing the hat. The girl in the back.
And you have to make them up, too.
Yes, we have to do their wigs and makeup. They have to also be part of the city. Oh, I'm sorry, you got cast as the flower girl who's old and poor. Sorry, we have to make you ugly. And then that poor girl will just take it so personally, and then she'll, like, not wear her character makeup or, you know, not wear her hat. And we're like, honey, you're playing the poor flower girl in the street. You can't be glamorous, but I'm a soprano. You know, you're like, but you're not that soprano, honey. And you have to, like, really, it's a lot of child minding. You have to, some of these people, you have to guide them and be like, I'm in charge. Yes, I'm younger than you, but I know what's best for you. Like,
which is the character that was the hardest to make it up?
Shrek. Shrek was absolutely one of the most difficult jobs I've ever had as far as the technique. Because I had 2.5 hours to turn someone into an ogre with full prosthetics every single show.
You had to paint him green the whole body every day?
We covered him in foam latex pieces and silicone pieces. His entire face and neck and shoulders were covered. And then it had to be painted and texturized and all these things to make it function for 8 shows a week.
That falls under special effects.
Absolutely.
What would you advise somebody who wants to become a makeup artist?
I would say that the best way to start is to draw.
To draw?
To draw. Because makeup artistry is art, right? We follow the same principles of design and that you would get as a painter, as a fine artist, but we just apply them to the face and body. We are looking at enhancing certain features on the face, but those features are, you know, isolated down to their truest forms are just circles, squares, and cones. And so the nose is a cone, the shape of the head is a box with a circle on it, and so you can learn how to enhance certain shapes by understanding light and shadow on simple forms. And so knowing how to draw and understanding color theory, because we use paint and we're using makeup and color is a huge part of it, understanding those basic principles will definitely aid you in your success as an artist, as either a hair or makeup artist. Understanding balance, understanding line and texture and things along those lines also help, because you as a lay person walking down the street, you see a person that has eyebrows that you can see from 20 feet away. You're like, that is not a well-balanced look, but it's a choice, you know? And so it helps you understand art as well as people's personal choices and how they decorate themselves. So fine art is a wonderful way to start. Next would be to utilize the amazing technology that we have now in 2025, which is the internet and YouTube and social media, because there are so many people expressing themselves in these platforms, and you can watch them over and over and over again practice the same technique, or see 12 different people do the same kind of smoky eye, and they'll all approach it differently. And then the next part is just to do it, to practice, not only on yourself, but on other people who don't look like you. You want to get your hands into it. But you can understand so many things theoretically, but you don't understand fully until you touch it And it's a multi-sensory experience of applying and removing and experiencing what this other human being is going through with you in this process.
Is doing weddings a good into the makeup industry?
It can. So doing makeup for special events is actually a very good way for someone who is getting their feet wet to brace themselves for working with the public. So if someone's young, they could probably start doing like special events like quinceañeras and proms and working with like a high school age person, as opposed to someone getting married. But maybe your auntie is getting married and she would like you to do her makeup, or your cousins or something like that. It's a great way to practice because special event makeup gets photographed. You'll get to see how it translates to film. You'll get to see how it lasts throughout the day. You'll get to, if you are present in what you're doing and taking stock of how your makeup performs at these events, you'll have a better idea of working with people in the future. So with makeup and bridal and all of that, that is its own industry in the hair and makeup world, and it requires a lot of entrepreneurial skills because most artists that work in that side advocate completely for themselves. And so they're doing marketing, they're doing all kinds of trade shows to show their skills, and then they are hustling and probably have a car driving all over the city.
Hustle.
And they have to deal with other expenses that I don't deal with necessarily.
You can't have social life with 6 days a week.
Right now, my social life is very limited. It's hard to date. It's hard to, do things outside of the theater, and because I work nights and weekends. Normal people that are not creatures of the night, they have the opposite schedule. So it's like I try to plan to see people, friends, colleagues, family on my lunch breaks.
Did you ever work on witness protection?
Not yet, so our school that I went to gets headhunted, like I said, by various companies. And the CIA actually poaches people from hair and makeup programs for Master of Disguise.
Oh my God, there's so many things you can do with makeup and hair. Who knew?
There really is, and they don't know, and it's amazing. The world is really your oyster. It has provided me access to places all over the world as a hair and makeup artist, in places that no one should see. Like, you're in these vulnerable, intimate spaces with celebrities, royalty, famous actors and sports people, and you're like...
Sports people? You make up sports people?
And any and all people. Anybody who needs to be on a camera. Anybody who goes on a stage. So I meet all kinds of people in this gig, and they're all from different universes.
You mentioned that you were busy during COVID also. I'm surprised because I know Broadway and theaters were closed and we were all in lockdown. So what kind of work did you do during the pandemic?
My mentor from grad school reached out and was like, hey, I need a new professor at my school. Can you teach 2 classes online for my school in Nashville? And I was like, yeah. So he was like, okay, you can teach whatever you want as long as it's a history of hair and makeup. And I was like, great, I'm ready. And I devised a 20-week lecture course called The Art of Adornment, The History of Hairstyling, Makeup, and Body Modification. And it goes through time and space, looking at how humans have decorated their bodies. And so I got to teach that for 4 semesters.
Is there anywhere online that our listeners can tap into it and learn a little bit from you?
I actually ended up utilizing YouTube as a resource and curating several video playlists that I did in addition to my lectures that were on PowerPoint. And so my YouTube, I guess it's under my name, and I have tons of playlists that are ready to go, that have already been vetted to make sure that everything is viable and backed up and researched. And it actually is a really great accessible tool to share with people because it's such a highly specialized interest.
You have no time to work on sideshows, right?
I do a little bit, but with enough notice, I can schedule things accordingly. So the opera that I'm designing in the spring, and so if I plan accordingly, I know that on my day off, I will be doing this job at the same time. It sucks, but it is what it is because it's more creative, it's more designing, it's trying to get that side of things satisfied while I have a job that pays the bills. But also as a wig maker, when we work with people experiencing hair loss, so with alopecia or dealing with chemo, your insurance can pay for your cranial prosthesis, which is the medical term for a wig. And so that is like the ultimate part of if I didn't have to work to make money and survive, I would just do that. and I would just do it for free. I would just make people...
That's how much you love it.
Yeah, I love it. And the techniques involved in working with people that wear your pieces every day out in the street is that they have to be perfect. They have to be what we call unclockable. And because you want to be able to have a conversation with someone 3 feet away, and you don't want to feel self-conscious about your hairpiece or your anything. There are avenues that one could take this skill set and really make a ton of money with it, especially when it comes to the wig side of things. Wigs is extremely lucrative if it's wielded by someone with an entrepreneurial spirit. And I don't have a business degree, and there are things that I would love to pursue when it comes to wigs, wig making, potentially opening a shop in New York that I hire women in my neighborhood to build for me. I would love to do that.
How do you keep up with the new technology?
I try my best to...
It changes all the time, right?
It does and it doesn't. So there are some things that, for instance, when building a fully hand-tied wig, where we tie individual hairs into mesh, there is not currently a machine that can do that, at least to that standard. And so that, for now, has those of us who do things by hand... It protects us a little bit.
You mean you do hair by hair?
Single strands. Yep. Every single hair in a full wig.
So how long does it take you to build a wig?
As an experienced wig maker, about 100 hours to build a wig.
That seems fast if you do hair by hair, but you got faster over time.
You get faster and you get in the zone. I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I build and music, and I love books because I can learn while I work, and then I'm getting paid to read.
Where do you get the hair that you use for the wigs?
At this moment, you can make wigs out of synthetic hair and out of human hair. Synthetic hair is straight up acrylic that is extruded through tubes to make a fiber that behaves similarly to human hair. It is a less than perfect material, but it gets the job done at a decent price point. Human hair obviously has to come from donors. It has to come from people who grow it. And most of the hair goods that are available in the United States come from a variety of places, but largely from India, China, Vietnam, and South America, where people grow their hair very, very long, very fast. And the quality of an Asian cuticle is that the hair is really robust. It has a very strong cuticle to it. And so you can bleach it many times, you can perm it, and you can take hair that is very dark, very black, and get it to relatively fine and blonde. But it requires a lot of processing. So for a very long time, a lot of hair goods were coming from India, and they were coming from temple floors, because in a certain sect of Hinduism, people practice tonsure, which is shaving their head with a razor and taking all of their hair off completely, and then all that hair gets donated to the god. People that run the temple then collect all that hair, process it, and send it to America to then go into weaves and wigs, largely for the African American community. Hair that is procured from Europeans, it tends to be more expensive. The quality of the cuticle of the hair is very sleek and fine, and depending on your demographic and who you're building for and who's consuming your wig, they're going to want different kinds of hair. So for instance, on Madonna, the hair was Ukrainian. Hair that is being bought for beautiful, expensive wigs are coming from heads that have been growing it for years and years and years.
Is it expensive to buy hair?
Yes, buying hair is expensive. Selling hair is cheap. The other side is the unethical wig making. And so hair goods that are coming out of places like Western China, where they have people in concentration camps, and they are forcing them to build goods to be sold in America, as well as taking their hair from them unethically to be made into hair goods. And so there are factories all over the world that are producing a fully hand-tied human hair wig, and they're selling it to someone in America for $35 when the actual amount of labor and materials that go into that piece should have been $3,500.
Wow.
For instance, I know that like a going rate for 3 feet of hair for someone in Vietnam, like to pay them like an ethical wage is like $100. Depending on the groups in which the hair is coming from, the value and the rate and the price changes.
From what I gather from our conversation, which is totally new to me, the wig business is the biggest part of the makeup industry.
I would say so. When I went to grad school, they were like, I know you want to be a makeup artist, but you got to learn how to do wigs because you will always have that skill and you can always benefit from it. And so we all had to learn how to build wigs. We had to learn how to construct them and work with them in all of the various ways so that we would always have that with us. Most of the time, if there's a job that gets posted, like say a musical theater tour or a cruise ship job or, you know, a small local theater that has a hair and makeup position, they also have to do wardrobe. They also have to do multiple things. And so it's like sometimes that job doesn't do any makeup. And all you're doing is hair. So that's where you're going to make money because that's where there's a job.
This is AI-proof job, which is good.
A little bit.
Why do you say a little bit?
A little bit. Because real life interactions of doing hair and makeup is definitely something that is job security. Doing makeup for things such as film and photos and things like that can very easily now be manipulated by AI.
In post-production.
In post-production and in pre-production. Because now they're utilizing AI in camera as way when they're filming people live, and in camera it is taking that information and aging them or significantly de-aging them. And that's what they're capturing is this live, you know, hybrid of both. So that actually takes away so many jobs, especially the ones that are artisanal crafts that are used in film and television. You know, there are so many things that are being taken away, and the artistry and the making and the understanding and the science of how these things work, that, you know, it's cheaper to use AI, but it affects the environment tremendously, and then it also takes jobs.
By the way, in the Tonys, do they give award for makeup on stage?
No, that's a good question. So wig and makeup design at the Tony Awards does not have its own award yet.
Why aren't you protesting?
We are. In fact, last season, one of my colleagues, Jared Janis, he did a whole campaign trying to show the fact that we do not have a Tony Award for wigs and makeup. We have been relegated forever and ever under the costume design. But the thing is, we do so much more. Can you imagine Wicked without her being painted green? Can you imagine the Phantom without his prosthetics? Like, there are iconic characters of Broadway that makeup is integral to the story, and yet we are snubbed and not given any of our flowers or recognition.
Disgusting. One last question. Do you love your job?
Yes, 100%. Every day.
You do?
Yes.
You don't feel like you have to schlep to work and, oh, I wish I didn't have to go?
I still have those days. I'm still tired, but at the end of the day, I play pretend for a living. And I get to make art, and I get to change people's lives in interesting and profound ways by painting their hair or painting their face and styling their hair. You know, it's people think of it as artifice and kind of shallow and, you know, all these things, but there's so much to it.
Oh no, shallow is
bigger.
far from shallow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank
that was
you.
so enlightening. I mean, really, I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's a wrap for today. If you have a comment or question or would like us to cover a certain job, please let us know. Visit our website at howmuchcanimake.info. We would love to hear from you. And on your way out, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anyone who is curious about their next job. See you next time.